This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Isai. Freilichen Chanukah. Today is the third day of Chanukah, so I would like to share with you a very unusual subject relevant to Chanukah. And at this time, I would like to mention that today's Shiur is dedicated by the Rubin family, Kuznicki family, firstly in honor of their mother's upcoming birthday on the 8th day of Chanukah, the 8th night of Chanukah, and also in honor of their parents' upcoming anniversary, Hershel Moshe ben Mendel and Zahava Edna Bas Betzalel Halevi. We wish them many happy and healthy years together, of nachas from all of their wonderful family. Ad B'yas Gal Tzedek. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a subject of the Maharshal. Maharshal was one of the all-time great Achronim, Rav Shlomo Luria, and the Maharshal, of course, is the author of Yam Shel Shloimeh, and we're going to speak about a very unusual practice that he had regarding the second night of Chanukah. And that practice is, and this is brought down in the Shari Tshuva. The Shari Tshuva is one of the chief Perushim on Orach Chaim. If you look in any Mishnah Brura, you'll see on top the Ber Heitev and the Shari Tshuva, the unsung commentaries of the Orach Chaim, and he brings down a practice of the Maharshal. He writes over here, Rashal Kana Shal Kesef. The Rashal would buy a silver menorah, not one time, every year.
A new one.
Yeah, Uvelel Sheni, and on the second night, Hischel Lahadlik Ba, he would begin to light it. He would not light it the first night. He would buy a new menorah and light it the second night. Ubeirech Lahadlik, he would make Lahadlik, and then he would make Sha'asa Nisim Lavaisenu and Shachianu, because he had a new menorah. When you buy a new article, you make a Shachianu when you buy it. No, but there's a svara to say that since you're making other brachos, Lahadlik and Sha'asa, so he'll be Masader the Shachianu along with the other brachos, similar to what we do often, let's say with Havdalah, or whenever we have a series of brachos, like the brachos HaShachar. Some people wait with Natil Yadayim in the morning, not when they wash their hands, but when they come to shul with the other brachos, and therefore the Maharshal would buy a new menorah every year. He would not light it on the first night, he would light it on the second night, and he would delay the Shachianu until he would light the menorah. He would make Lahadlik, he would make Sha'as, he would make Shachianu, and this is quoted from the Matei Moshe. Now, who's the Matei Moshe? Matei Moshe was Rav Moshe Mas, who was the primary disciple of the Maharshal. Now, the Matei Moshe, which you have on your sheet, I just want to read for you inside, writes a beautiful language. We know the Gemara says, Gedoyla Shimusha Shal Torah Yoiser Milimuda. It's greater is the service of Torah than the learning itself. So what does that mean? Gadol Shimusha Shal Torah Yoiser Milimuda. So simply it means that it's even more important to serve Talmidei Chachamim than to learn from them. That's a greater sign of dedication to Torah, a greater sign of hachana and humility to Torah, is more than learning. I guess when you learn, you get something out of it. When you service, it's more of a self-effacing way to show humility to Torah. But some Rishonim learn, no, it's you actually learn more from hanging around Talmidei Chachamim than by learning from them. When you learn from them, okay, there's a formalized session and they tell you A, B, C, D, but they're always, the subtleties that don't get across in the formal session that you can only get by hanging around the Talmidei Chachamim. The Gemara says, walking with them, speaking with them, doing business with them, marrying into their family, that type of thing. In other words, sometimes you gain more from the casual acquaintance than from the formal learning. Either way, we find in the Svarim that many great Talmidei Chachamim were Meshamesh the Rabbeim. For example, Chassam Sofer writes about his Rebbe, Rav Nosson Adler, that he did not move his hand from his Rebbe's hand his entire life. Chassam Sofer often writes, when I was pouring water to my Rebbe, Rav Nosson Adler, that's an expression the Gemara uses by Elisha. Elisha was Yatzak Mayim to Eliyahu. Well, here we have a similar expression in the Matei Moshe, who is the Talmud of the Maharshal. He says, Va'ani, and I, Kishahayisi Shoyev Mayim. When I drew water, Mimainei hayeshua, from the wellspring of salvation. Mimakar mayim chayim, from the fountain of living water. Hanoivim, that flows. Mayim shel Shlomo Morei Hagoyin Zal. When I was serving my Rabbi, the fountain of water, Rabbeinu Shlomo, Roisi, I saw shekanoloi shragois ketanoi shel kesav. He bought small torches of silver. So, it could be this is a little, it's not that he bought this huge silver menorah every year, but it sounds like it was more on the modest side, but it was something new. And on the second night, he would begin to light it and he'd make a shechianu. And the reason is based on the Gemara Brachos, that if someone builds a new house or buys new vessels, he makes a shechianu. Even though the Rosh and the Torah say that you should do it when you buy it, but the Maharshal preferred to delay the shechianu with the other brachos, like we make the shechianu on the lulav when we pick it up, and the shechianu sukkah when we make kiddush. We always like to join the shechianu of a mitzvah with the performance of the mitzvah. Okay, so now a few questions over here. Number one, why in the world did he buy a new menorah every year? I mean, he's a rabbi. I would assume he's busy, right? I assume he didn't have free time on his hands to every single year go and buy a silver menorah. Number two, it seems a little bit like a waste of money. He could have gone to Amazing Savings and bought you could get a silver plated menorah, $19.99, and I probably wouldn't make a shechianu on that. And why is this shechianu not a hefsek? Hagava atzmacha. I'll give you a mashal. Let's say a person was lighting the menorah, and he made lahadlik ner, and he made shas anisim. Then he decided he's going to make a shechianu on a new pomegranate. So we'd say, you were just mafsek between the lighting of the menorah and the bracha on the menorah and the lighting of the menorah. You don't make random shechianus in the middle of the performance of the mitzvah. So buying a new menorah is just a random purchase that has nothing to do with the actual mitzvah of lighting the Chanukah menorah. So you like to have a new menorah, good for you. But why are you interrupting with this shechianu that has nothing to do with the performance of the mitzvah in the middle of doing the mitzvah?
Maybe, what's the criteria for shechianu? You said if it's a $19.99 menorah, you wouldn't make it. If it's $1,000 silver, so it's the value. You get yourself a new car, is that a shechianu?
Yeah. Yes.
Get a new baseball glove, is that a shechianu?
No. No, if you buy a new car, if you make a significant purchase that gives you simcha, then now a car is different. A car you'd actually make hatov hametiv, because now it depends. If you let your wife drive, now that's that's up to your decision whether you're going to let your wife drive. But if you do let your wife, then it's benefiting another person. You'd make hatov hametiv.
Well, it's even more dangerous if you have grandchildren to drive.
There's a shot when you buy a house, so they make hatov hametiv, because even though it's a significant purchase, on the other hand, you're going into debt for the next 50 years. Right? A mortgage is a significant loan. So you may not make when you buy a car. But if you buy something straight up, let's say you buy a new suit. Now that's a little questionable nowadays. It used to be you buy a suit once in a while for Yom Tif and it makes you happy. Someone who wears a suit every day and is getting sort of lower end suits, maybe you don't make a shechianu.
Isn't it relative to your status in life and
Yeah.
money?
Yeah.
Who buys a suit once every 2 years, even though it may be a suit that's $100, to him it's a big deal.
It's relative, yes.
For an usher,
Yeah.
buying a $1,000 suit is garnished.
It's somewhat subjective, yeah.
A suit is shechianu or malbish haruma?
If you weren't wearing anything before you put on the suit, and then you put on the suit, then God is being very gracious to you, and He's being malbish harumim. I don't know that if you made the malbish harumim in the morning, you're good to go. You don't make, but yeah, you would make a shechianu maybe on a new suit if it's a value. What was the Maharshal doing? Let's try to explain this. There's a Gemara Masechta Shabbos that says like this. On Daf Chaf Gimel, the Gemara says, Amar Rab Chia Bar Ashi Amar Rav Hamadlik Ner Shel Chanukah. Someone who lights the Ner of Chanukah, Tzarech Levarech, needs to make a bracha. Okay, we're good with that. Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar, Rabbi Yirmiyah says, not only the one who lights it, but if somebody sees it, Haroya Ner Shel Chanukah Tzarech Levarech. One who sees it has to make a bracha. Amar,
what bracha would he make?
Presumably that means if you didn't light and you only see it, you make Shas Anisim and Shechianu on the first night. And then subsequent nights, if you didn't light and you saw it, we make Shas Anisim. We pass in that way.
Yeah.
If let's say someone doesn't light for whatever reason, or doesn't have a home, he would make a bracha Shas Anisim. Now, what brachas are we talking about? Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Yom Rishon on the first day, Haraya Mavarech Beis, one who sees makes 2 brachas. Umadlik Mavarech Gimel, one who lights makes 3 brachas. Mikan ve'elach, from here on, Madlik Mavarech Shtayim, one who lights makes 2 brachas. Haraya Mavarech Achas. Hear what the Gemara is saying? On day 1, the one who lights makes 3, the one who sees makes 2, and on every subsequent day, the one that lights makes 2, and the one who sees makes 1. The question is, which bracha are you not making after day 1? Says the Gemara, my mamayit. Which bracha is being diminished after day 1? Says the Gemara, mamayit zman. Or mamayit zman. Interesting. Now, could somebody please tell me why we need to have this back and forth? Which bracha do you not say after day 1? Oh, Shachianu. Good morning, America. I think we move on Me'elav. I think we all know that if you say on day 1 you make 3 brachas, on day 2 you make 2, we know the bracha you're not making on day 2 is Shachianu. What I would think you do make Shachianu on day 2? Oh, so this Gemara implies already that maybe there's a svara to say you make Shachianu on day 2. Now, why would that be?
Day 3, day 4.
At least on day 2.
It was a new nace every day that it lasted, right? You could say there was a new nace.
Okay, you could say it's a new nace every day. Yeah. But why would I think you make a Shachianu on day 2? So Rabbi say it's Chanukah. So obviously at least one time we have to ask the famous question of the Beis Yosef. Right? By now, when I was a kid, they had a sefer with 100 answers to the Beis Yosef.
500.
Now you could get 500 answers to the Beis Yosef's kasha. Okay, we're not going to do all 500 today.
Try for 300.
We'll try. Let's see. And by the way, the Beis Yosef was not the first one who asked this question. Meiri already asked this question. Sefer HaEshkol asked this question. And the obvious question is, if they found oil enough to last for
1 day.
1 day, so what's the question?
There's no nace on the first day.
So there's no nace on the first day. So the miracle began on day 2. So Chanukah should be from Chavav until for another 7 days. So the Beis Yosef himself gives 3 answers. Answer number 1 is they divided the oil into 8 parts, and each day they lit 1/8 of it. So even the first day was a miracle. One of the famous questions on that answer is, why did they do that on the first night? How could they roll? You can't be soymech on a nes. That means they were relying on a miracle. You can't be soymech on a miracle. The second answer the Beis Yosef gives is, after they put the oil in the menorah, the original flask remained full, so that there was a miracle even on the first night. But then, you could ask on that, then the 8th night there was no miracle. Because if on the 7th day the flask remained full, so then what's the miracle on the 8th day?
Because on the 8th day they were using the oil that was created by
miraculously
the previous night.
Okay. Or they poured all the oil in the first night, and it burned the whole night, and in the morning the menorah was still full. Those are the 3 answers of the Beis Yosef. However, the Pri Chadash says we don't need those answers, because there's a simple answer, and that is, on Chaf Hei was the biggest miracle of all. Chaf Hei, they won the war! They defeated the Yevanim and they entered the Beis HaMikdash. That's the main miracle of Chanukah. It makes my life better, whether they had oil in the Beis HaMikdash, they don't. When I go to sleep at night, my head hits the pillow. Whether they had oil in the Beis HaMikdash 1,000 years ago, or actually 2,200 years ago, or they didn't. It does not. How does it affect the main celebration of Chanukah is we beat those nasty Yevanim. And we have Torah and mitzvahs today. So on Chaf Hei Kislev, says the Pri Chadash, the main miracle is the miracle of the Milchama. That's Chaf Hei. Chavav and on is the miracle of the oil. So by the way, in the Sefer Chukei Ritzainecha, he brings a beautiful pshat. Are there any Sfardim in here today? Rav Yaakov is here. So in the Alanisim, what do you our brethren Sfardim, what do they say? Alanisim yala porkon v'agvuros al chuos v'al nechamot. Ma kara im v'al hamilchamot. Him lo amru zeh. No? Let's see.
Maybe the whole idea is that you don't want to celebrate a war. People die, they're God's creations. Why would you say Shechianu on a military battle?
When you win the war, you celebrate.
Do we do it any other war that we won?
We don't. I don't. Do we have a Yom Tif that we fought? Okay.
We had the Kibush Haaretz was a nace.
There's no Yom Tif for that. B'chlal, there's no Yom Tif.
So
Rabbosai, one of the main differences between Ashkenazim and Sfardim is in the Nusach of Alanisim. Ashkenazim, those of us from German and Polish descent, we say the words Vial HaMilchamot or Milchamois, and the Sfardim they don't say Milchamot, they just say Nechamot. Why? We're going L'shitase and the Sfardim are going L'shitase. It depends how you answer the Beis Yosef's question. Beis Yosef wants to know, why are there 8 days of Chanukah? The first day wasn't a miracle. So the Beis Yosef says, no, the first day was also a miracle. Either they put it an eighth of the oil, or it was the flask was full, or the menorah was full. According to the Beis Yosef, the miracle of Chanukah, all 8 days is all about the oil. Nothing about the war. Therefore, Sfardim, who go like Beis Yosef always, they don't say Milchamos. But Ashkenazim answer the Beis Yosef's kasha differently. Ashkenazim answer the question like the Pri Chadash, who's an Ashkenazi. He says the first day is for the war. That's why Ashkenazim say Milchamos in Alanisa. Very interesting. Let's come back to the Maharshal. The Maharshal had this unusual custom that on the second day he would always buy a new menorah, and he wouldn't light it on the first day, he would only light it on the second day. Why? So we brought from the Gemara had a kasha. What bracha do you not say on the second day? It sounds like a very elementary question. Of course it's Shechianu. Why would I think you make Shechianu on the second day? But based on what we're saying, based on the Pri Chadash, you could possibly say, maybe we should make a Shechianu on the second day. The first day of Chanukah is a Yom Tov for the war, so I make a Shechianu for that. The second day of Chanukah is almost like a new Yom Tov is beginning. You're making a Shechianu for the oil. So that's why the Gemara asks, which bracha do you not say on day 2? And the Gemara says, you know what? It's still all one Yom Tov. You don't have to make a Shechianu on day 2. But the Maharshal, who loved Chanukah so much, he said, maybe I want to show gratitude for both miracles. So even though it's not halachically legislated to make a Shechianu on day 2, but if I buy a new menorah, so now I have a good excuse to fulfill the Havamina of the Gemara, that to possibly make Shechianu on day 2 for the miracle of the oil, day 1 is for the military victory, day 2 is for the oil, and therefore the Maharshal would buy a new menorah, and he would be mechavein that the Shechianu is not just going on the new menorah, but it's also going on the Yom Tov. Similar to what we do on Rosh Hashanah on the second night, where when we make Shechianu, it's not going on the new fruit really, it's going on Rosh Hashanah. But because there's some element of doubt, we take a new fruit and we have in mind the new fruit also. So what the Maharshal would do is, he would buy the new menorah on day 2, and he would make the Shechianu on the menorah, but really what he was mechavein is that it should be going on the Yom Tov of the second aspect of the miracle. So that's a very unusual practice that the Maharshal had. And this is the pshat that the Pri Megadim gives in the Maharshal. But by the way, look at number 7, 3 lines from the end. Umikamakam tzarich ian im yesh lanu lasos kain. It's questionable whether we should do this. Delay mechsi kiyuara. Because maybe it looks like gaiva. Meaning what? In other words, for someone who's not on the level to start buying a new menorah to make a Shechianu, because maybe it's like a new Yom Tov for the second miracle, it would look presumptuous for a regular person to do this. Only, he says, Adoinenu, the Maharshal, he was able to do this. But the average person, perhaps should not do this. So it's interesting, I gave this shiur on Sunday, and somebody asked me that Taka, his son, became bar mitzvah, and as a bar mitzvah gift, someone gave him a new menorah. So now, maybe you make a Shechianu. I don't think you make Shechianu on the gift, but let's say you would buy a new menorah one year. Should you reserve it for the second night of Chanukah, and then make Shechianu in the Hadlaka? Or just do it.
Maharshal to do that. Good.
No, again.
People are going to think, "What are you doing? No one else does it. Let's skate under."
again, maybe people to do it every year. I understand, but what happened if Taki didn't have a menorah, and you happened to buy a new menorah one year? Should you wait until the second night to make a shachianu, or should you just make a shachianu when you buy it, or when you make the shachianu the first night, should you have in mind that it's going on your new menorah as well?
What if you bought a menorah on the fifth night? The prices went down, you got a good buy, so you make it on the fifth night? Would it matter whether second, third, fourth?
Well, according to what we're saying, it's specifically the second night, right?
But if you say that because you're buying a new menorah, it's one thing.
No, we don't know. No, that we said, again, one of our questions were that l'chara making a shachianu is a hefsek. And the answer that we're trying to say is, no, it's connected to the Yom Tov, and that's why it's not a hefsek. So to do it on a random night, no, but maybe the second night, which you have that possibility of making a shachianu for the new miracle. Anyway, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach writes in Halicha Shloimeh, look at number 8, I guess he says you do make shachianu on a gift. That someone who bought a new menorah or got a new menorah as a gift, he should be mechavein in the shachianu that you make on the first night. In other words, we're not noyeg at all like the Maharshal. Not only do we not go out of our way to buy a new menorah to make a shachianu on the second night, but even if you happen to buy it, don't even delay until the second night to make the shachianu.
How was the difference if someone gives you a suit or you buy it yourself? To make shachianu. Do you have to? No.
What's the difference you're saying? Yeah, this is Shlomo Zalman is saying that you would make if you got a gift.
Why would you think not to?
A gift is not as, in a way, when you buy something, there's more of a simcha than when you get a gift. It depends who gives it to you. When you get a gift, it's embarrassing,
Maybe your mother-in-law.
True. Okay. Let me just share with you briefly another svara why maybe it would not be a hefsek to make a shachianu on a new menorah on Chanukah. Not just because of the Pri Chadash, that the first night there's the miracle of the military victory, and after that there's a miracle of the oil. And that is, there's a svara brought down in the Sefer Shalmei Taida, from Shalom Feldman. Look at number 10. He brings down in the name of the Stipler the following idea. And that is, on Pesach, do you say Halal Shalem for 7 days of Pesach?
No, first 2.
Right. Why do you not say Halal Shalem for the rest of Pesach?
Hashem's creatures were drowning.
That's why you don't say Halal Shalem on the 7th day. But that was because the Mitzvim died in Kriyas Yamsuf. Why do you not say Halal Shalem day 3 or day 2 in Eretz Yisrael 3, 4, 5, 6? Why don't you say complete Halal? It's Yom Tov. You say Halal on Sukkot, Halal Shalem. Why don't you say on Pesach? The answer is because on Pesach it's the same carbon every day. So what? So if it's the same carbon every day, you know what that means? That it's one long Yom Tov. So one Halal covers the whole Yom Tov. Because it's not a new Yom Tov every day. On Sukkot, you bring a different carbon every day. Well, how do you bring a different carbon? The parim go down. So the fact that there are different carbonates every day means every day is a different Yom Tov.
Can you make a shachianu every day?
It's still Sukkot, but it's a different quality a day. So you're making one shachianu. That's the difference between Pesach and Sukkot. Pesach, it's the same carbon. If it's the same carbon, that means it's like one long Yom Tov and one halal paters you. However, on Sukkot, it's different carbonates every day, and therefore, that means it's a different quality Yom Tov, and you could say Halal Shalom every day. By the way, so you'll ask, if that's the case, then Mr. Heimowitz said a different reason. On the 7th day of Pesach, why don't we say Halal Shalom? So, we know there's a famous reason the Beis Yosef brings, that Masa Yadai Tovim B'Yam V'Atem Oimrim Shira, the Mitzvah are drowning, you're saying Shira. What do you need that reason for?
Yeah, the
it's the same carbon. The answer is, there are 2 things that obligate halal. One is Yom Tov, and one is a miracle. you wouldn't say Hallel on the 7th day of Pesach that because it's a Yom Tif, because it's one long Yom Tif, because you bring the same carbon every day. But maybe you should say Hallel for a different reason, and that is the miracle of Kriyas Yam Suf. We don't say Hallel for the miracle of Kriyas Yam Suf because people suffered from that miracle. So you could, every Yom Tif, there are always two possible reasons to say Hallel. A miracle that happened, or we say Hallel for Yom Tif. On Sukkot, you could have both. It's a different Yom Tif every day, and you have the miracle of Nane Akavai.
Well, people suffer from the miracle of Chanukah too. A lot of Yevanim died in the war.
Well, it depends what the miracle is. If the miracle is the oil, nobody's suffering if the oil. Now, why do you say Hallel on Chanukah? Are you saying Hallel on Chanukah because it's a Yom Tif? Or are you saying Hallel on Chanukah for the miracle? Now,
well, it has to be because of the miracle. Well, because we don't say on Purim it was Chutzlaritz, right?
Chanukah is in Eretz Yisrael.
Right?
Chanukah is in Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah, that's why you say it.
So why do you say it? Do you say it for the miracle or do you say it for the Yom Tif? So you say, what do you mean? It's not, Chanukah's not a Yom Tif. You're allowed to do malacha. But on the other hand, the language of the Gemara is Kavam v'asam yamim toivim b'halal v'hoidah. That means regarding saying Hallel, they made it a Yom Tif. Okay. But then now the question is, but there are no karbanes at all. So then why would you say Hallel Shalom every day?
Well, we read about the karbanes on the museum.
Yeah, but they didn't even bring those karbanes on Chanukah, right?
Right.
So why do we say Hallel Shalom every day? Isn't it more like Pesach than like Sukkot? So if you look in Toysus in Masechta Tainis Chav Ches Amud Beis, look at number 11. Toysus in Tainis Chav Ches Amud Beis. Hu goimer Hallel. On the first day of Pesach, you finish Hallel. Avol Shmoina Yemei Pesach loy, but not the 8 days of Pesach. Mishum deloy dami lechanukah v'sukkos. Pesach is not like Chanukah and Sukkos. The Chanukah dinuhu ligmar Hallel. The chol haches yamim hoya hanes miskadel. V'aya kol chad v'chad yom tif. V'chein b'sukkos. Kol yoyma v'yoyma have a yom tif la'atzmoi. Lefi shapari achag mismatim v'holchem. But Pesach, it's the same carbon, and therefore we don't say Hallel. So listen carefully to what he's saying. On Pesach, it's the same Yom Tov because it's the same carbon. Sukkot is a different carbon every day, therefore each day is a different Yom Tov. And Chanukah, the miracle increased, and therefore it's also like a different Yom Tov every day. See, I might have thought, well, if it's a different miracle every day, then every day you need to say Hallel for the miracle.
What's the really? Why do you say Shachiyanu every day?
1 second. No, you don't say Shachiyanu every day of Sukkot.
No, but this is a different miracle. Oh, because different carbon. I mean.
1 sec. So I may have said the reason why you say Hallel every day on Sukkot is because since every day the nace got bigger, so every day you say Hallel for the miracle. It sounds like he's saying a little differently. Since every day the miracle increased, therefore each day is a different Yom Tif. Be it as it may, comes the stipler, and the stipler says like this. He says, since every day of Chanukah is like a different Yom Tif, it's like the second night of Rosh Hashanah that we say Shachiyanu and Kiddush, even if you don't have a Beged Chadash, because even though it's one Kedusha, but it's 2 different days. So to here, the Shachiyanu has Shaykhis even for Chanukah. But they didn't make a takana to say Shachiyanu every day. Why not? Because the word Shachiyanu, V'higyanu means when you reach it. But if you were to make a Shachiyanu, it wouldn't be a hefsek because it's connected to Chanukah. So he suggests that the Maharshal Shachiyanu is not a hefsek because, in a way, each day of Chanukah is like a separate Yom Tif. So the Shachiyanu that he made on the menorah could be somewhat connected to the performance of the mitzvah. Now, why he would only do that on the second day is unclear, unless you go back and say, like what the Pri Chadash says, that the second day begins the miracle of the oil. Okay, Rabbi said that concludes the first segment, but I just want to share with you one other interesting occurrence that happened to the Maharshal, and let's introduce it with the question of the Chidushei Harim. Chidushei Harim asks on Parshas Vayeshev, what was so significant about the miracle of the oil of Chanukah? We know Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa, one day his daughter came home with a jug of vinegar, and Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa says, well, what's get done over here? You're lighting vinegar? And Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa said, don't worry, Misha Amar l'shemen v'hidlek yamar l'chaymetz shehidlek. So that means, basically in his house, he had the Chanukah miracle. And yet we don't have some kind of random Yom Tov, like in the middle of Tammuz. Well, why is everyone lighting candles? Yeah, because Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa one time, he didn't have oil and his vinegar lit. We don't commemorate that. So what was so significant about the miracle of Chanukah? It happened to Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa well after the Chanukah miracle. Or the miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf. So we have a Yom Tov of Pesach. We know the Gemara says in Chulin, Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, he once came to Nahar Ginoi, and he split it 3 times. So why don't we have a Yom Tov to commemorate that? So the Chidushei Harim says that for a miracle to happen to a tzaddik, it's not really a big deal. People who are in that madrega, who live their life, l'mala min hateva, for miracles to happen to them, that's sort of par for the course. The miracle of Chanukah is that something miraculous happened for every single Jew, even people who are not on that level. The miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf was the Yamsuf split, not for Moshe, it split for all of Klal Yisrael. That is what's significant about that. But a miracle that oil lit extra, that is really not that significant. So it's very interesting. If you look in the introduction of the Yam Shel Shloimeh, of the Maharshal, he alludes to a miracle that happened to him. If you look in number 13, he says, V'gam pam echad, one time, Bali yadi, it came to my hand, Al yedei ner mitzvah, through a candle of a mitzvah, v'Torah ar, Ki'ilu hiruni min hashamayim, as if they showed me from heaven, V'nasanli, and they gave me hermuna, permission, v'ametz koyach, and strength, Mimelachis, harakim, upesule shari oira. In other words, basically he said, I got a sign from heaven that they were telling me, be strong, paskin halachos, chazak v'yamatz, doin isser v'heter v'hoira. So the Maharshal is alluding to the fact that through his candle, he was given like some kind of endorsement from heaven, like, you go get him, good job. So the question is, he doesn't really tell us what happened. What's the story? So if you look in the Sefer Kav HaYashar, he tells us exactly what happened to the Maharshal. The Harav Hagoyin Maharshal, Zechreinu Levracha, he writes in the Hakdama of his Sefer, which is called Yam Shel Shloimeh, he says the story, and on the 4th line, says the Kav HaYashar, I have a tradition of what the story is. Shamati mi pi moiri al pi Kabbalah, I heard from my master, based on Kabbalah, Sha'inyan hu kach, here's this what happened. Kishahaya harav Rav Shlomo Luria, Zechreinu Levracha, loy made, when he was learning v'chiber asfarim Yam Shel Shloimeh, Eiraloi, it happened to him, Shahayaloi rak ner katan. He had one small candle, v'doilek lefanov, and it was lighting. Vayazman karov li'kavos. It was a time. It was like, the candles you get from the Telz Yeshiva. You know exactly. You could put on, exactly, you could put on your watch from the time you light it, it's going out. What?
You're going to hear from me.
Yeah, right. And this candle, it was like, the Energizer bunny. Longer than 3 or 4 hours. And this is the testimony of his student and his grandson. And he says, this happened to the Maharshal. Let his merit stand up for us. By the way, the Chidah, in his entry for the Maharshal, The Maharshal, he writes, was Geza Rashi. Maharshal was a descendant of Rashi, and he brings down the story in italics in the bottom of the right-hand corner. It says, "V'neis nasaloi b'layla echad shloi hayil halikim ner katan," and it lit longer and longer and longer. So the Maharshal had his own modern-day Chanukah story. So could it be that the Maharshal would buy a new menorah every year and make a shechianu?
His nice.
Because yes, you obviously need halachic reasons over here. You need the Pri Chadash. You need to be able to explain that the second night of Chanukah maybe is the beginning of a new miracle because of the first night was a military victory and the second night was the miracle of the oil. But the Maharshal particularly felt a connection to Chanukah because he experienced his own Yom Tif of Chanukah, and he wanted to somehow commemorate that with the lighting of the menorah. So the Maharshal certainly had this mysterious and miraculous Chanukah practice, and which was certainly based on halachic considerations, but you never know, maybe the Maharshal had something more to it by buying this menorah every year. I want to wish everyone a freilich and Chanukah.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.